What's going on, everyone, and welcome to Never Lag. I'm one of your hosts, Levi, joined by the man who fell in the pit, Zach, and this is This Week in Gaming, the weekly show where we bring you the news, the reviews, and the hot takes from the past week in video games. If you're all about it, you can support us over on Patreon at patreon.com/neverlag. And of course, right here, just by doing what you're doing, watching on YouTube and listening wherever you get your podcasts from. So thank you for that. But let's talk news. What do we have today?
We have 15 stories on the docket today, so we
15.
best get going. Let's move along
Oh
so that
my
we can
gosh.
be efficient for our listeners and keep this podcast under 5 hours. But our
Yeah, we like to hit that 4 hour mark.
right, nice and concise. Our first story is about Breath of the Wild 2. Primarily that it looks good. Maybe it looks too good. So this story is
I don't believe
um,
it.
probably not. But the context of this story is that Breath of the Wild 2 is being speculated by some experts as maybe launching on a new console. So the reason for this is covered over on Digital Foundry, and it was reported by Games Radar as well. And so the Digital Foundry crew were talking about how the most recent Breath of the Wild 2 footage from the trailer we got recently point to a couple of details that maybe suggest this game might be too big to perform on the current Switch hardware. And so Linneman from Digital Foundry said, "This trailer was interesting because the image quality seemed quite good, I think. I was a little bit surprised by how sharp and clear this looked compared to the original in general." And then we have one of the other people from Digital Foundry diving into some of the specifics around the volumetric clouds that were present in the footage, and that those seemed like they would be really hard to pull off with the current 2017 model of the Switch that we have. And some of the camera cuts seemed to have perfect anti-aliasing. And those are things that even newer hardware struggle with. And so they point out that potentially this could just be a trailer being run at higher settings than we'd actually see on the game. But they pointed out that Nintendo isn't really known for doing this. Generally, Nintendo shows us what we're actually going to be seeing. So that kind of raises an interesting question. Is Nintendo changing their approach to the type of footage they use for teasing these new games? Or is there something we haven't learned yet? Primarily, are we going to be expecting a new Switch console sometime in the coming year or two? And is that going to coincide with Breath of the Wild 2? It's worth noting that Breath of the Wild originally was developed as a Wii U game. So maybe we should expect a visual bump from Breath of the Wild 2. It's also been 5 years. So maybe we kind of should expect a little bit more performance, but the Switch is also a bit of an underwhelming piece of hardware in a performance sense. So I don't know. It's a kind of an interesting question. I'm curious to hear your take on it.
So is this the same footage that we've seen that's been released, or was this like behind closed doors? Do you know that?
No, I believe this is
Because
the
this is
trailer
coming
we
out of
got.
Digital Foundry. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it looks fine. I don't know. It didn't blow me away. It looked kind of like Breath of the Wild, maybe a bit better. But um, as far as it looking too good, I don't know. It remains to be seen. There is something to be said for the fact that the original was developed as a Wii U game. I mean, it was a cross-generational title. So, I mean, Wii U, good grief. I don't know. While I'm talking here, maybe you can look up when the Wii U launched. How old is the Wii U at this point? But yeah, I mean, it would stand to reason that when you're not limited by the Wii U anymore, that this version could run a little better. But at the same time, when I think of the original Breath of the Wild game, I can't really think of any games that have looked better on the Switch.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the visual fidelity definitely is a little low. Yeah, I think of Mario Odyssey. Mario Odyssey is one of the better looking newer games on the Switch, and I say newer; it's old at this point. But also Odyssey is not at all under the same load as a big open world game that has to render these huge distances and things like that. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I don't really see this game running that much better just because it's no longer on the Wii U. And maybe I'll be surprised. Maybe that was a big thing, but we all know the Switch is not a powerhouse. It's not. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not even a PS4. So that said, the only thing I can think of, and I still think this to be true, and if it's not true, I don't know what Nintendo is doing, but there has to be a Switch Pro coming, like a true mid generational leap, similar to a PS4 Pro or something like that. Um, and maybe this trailer is running on whatever specs or hardware they have determined to be this unreleased, unveiled Switch Pro model. And maybe the release is trying to coincide with that, as it mentioned, with the beginning of next year. But I have a whole host of doubts with that as well, just because hardware is so hard to get right now, and
Yeah.
it's hard to imagine them launching a Switch Pro, what, 1 year after launching the OLED version? Would it be less than that, maybe? So
It would
I
be,
don't know.
yeah, no, it would be a year and a quarter, a year and a half. So the OLED released in November 2021, and so if these
Did
coincide
it
for
really? I
spring
thought it
20,
released
it
this
did.
year. Okay.
No, it was November. So if we're looking at a spring 2023 release, it's not quite a year and a half, maybe almost a year and a half. So that seems possible. Uh,
Yeah.
and there's
Yeah.
something maybe poetic about getting the Switch Pro with Breath of the Wild 2 and getting the original Switch with Breath of the Wild. Um, I don't know. I like the idea of having better hardware that could support better visual fidelity, better graphics, textures, all of that for a new Breath of the Wild game. I agree that the first one looks pretty good, but the Wii U was released in 2012, so it's a 10-year-old piece of hardware, and it's not like it was punching above its weight back when it was released, even. So, I guess we'll
Yeah,
we'll
which
have
is
to
a
wait and
theme with Nintendo. So
yeah, they're not really known for that, but um, I could see a pro coming within the next year, and it would make some business sense to time those things together, because then it's, oh, Breath of the Wild 2 is going to perform way better on the Switch Pro. That's going to sell. They could bundle it. I don't know. I feel like there's a huge marketing opportunity there. Whether that's the best thing for consumers, I mean, as long as you have the option to play it on your existing Switch or upgrade to the Pro, then
yeah,
that's not a bad thing. But that's all
that's the
speculation at this point.
that's what I prefer. I really hope that that's what's happening here. Granted, even if it is what's happening, I may not be able to get my hands on a Switch Pro. It'll be
Yeah, I hear that.
running through fire to try and get one. But that's what I hope will happen, because I do think it will be a little bit disappointing if Breath of the Wild 2 comes out and I have to play it on the same hardware from 2017. And I've seen all these other games kind of mimic Breath of the Wild and look fantastic. I think of Immortals Phoenix Rising or Genshin
Mm-hmm.
Impact. I mean, goodness, Genshin Impact. If Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 could look like Genshin Impact, that would just be a dream come true. It's never going to, but man, I would like to see a noticeable step up after 5 years from the first game.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like we have to, right? Like, because when Breath of the Wild came out, I think it looks really good for the fidelity it's at. Like, it's a very pretty game. It's very well put together, but it's running on old hardware, and it's just not the highest fidelity. Uh, I think Nintendo has the capability to do better. So let's hope. Um,
Regarding this story, though, it's good to hear that someone who, I mean, Digital Foundry, their job is to look at resolution and frame rates and all these frame pacing, all these technical things.
mhm.
So, I mean, I guess it's, at the end of the day, it's good to hear someone who has a keen eye for these things appears to think that Breath of the Wild 2 looks too good to run on the Switch. Like
Yeah.
that's good news, I suppose.
I agree. When I saw the trailer, I wasn't someone thinking, wait a second, are those volumetric clouds? And piecing that
Hold
together.
the phone.
I'm not able to do that, but trust the guys over at Digital Foundry. So we'll have to wait and see, but potentially exciting. Let's go ahead and get into our second story, which is talking about the Nvidia leak that happened. Was this last year? So Nvidia had a leak
Believe
that,
so.
yeah. So
Could have
there
been
was a
late
list.
2020.
Yeah, there was a list of games that were leaked that included a bunch of titles of potential, like, upcoming games, and it was rumored that these are all real releases that are upcoming, because it was a leak from Nvidia itself. The list at the time included games like Gears 6, Dragon's Dogma 2, Titanfall 3, Tekken 8, Monster Hunter 6, Final Fantasy 9 remake. So there's a bunch of things that have since been verified as upcoming to be released. We'll put the link to the full list. Someone on Reddit, of course, compiled this list. But it's interesting because at the time, it looks like it was September 2021. Okay. So it's interesting because at the time, the Nvidia team released a statement acknowledging that this was an unauthorized list to be published online. But they said that this was speculative. So they kind of hinted that this isn't actually true. But the evidence is mounting. So some of the things we've seen recently, God of War for PC, Grand Theft Auto remasters, Grand Theft Auto, the trilogy, the definitive edition, Street Fighter 6, Crisis 4, and then most recently, Kingdom Hearts 4. So we've seen multiple things that all have been predicted by this prophetic list of that is telling us the future, divining the future of video games. When in reality, it just seems like this list is actually accurate. So that's kind of interesting. Before we move on to Kingdom Hearts 4, which we'll save a story for that. Any thoughts on the leak here? Is there anything else that has caught your eye about this Nvidia leak?
Yeah, for me, there's not a ton on this list that are terribly exciting for me. I do look at Titanfall 3, and I think that would be really cool. Titanfall 2 is one of the coolest bite-sized pieces of content that you can have. It takes maybe a night or two to play, just a few hours, 4 to 7 or something like that. And it's just nonstop action packed. There is not a section of that game that is slow or boring in any way. One of the greatest shooter campaigns that's probably ever been made. So it'd be nice to see them take a break from their live service model and actually do a Titanfall 3. I know there's a lot of people hoping for that. So we'll see. Monster Hunter 6 will inevitably get. Final Fantasy 9 remake could be cool. I like the new remake of the Final Fantasy games. Final Fantasy 7 was fantastic. If they're going to keep that style with the different installments, I could certainly be interested in that. So we'll see. I mean, any of these, this could have been a very accurate leak at the time, and then still some of these have been canceled since then. We don't really know. So it's hard to say or be too set in stone on any of these, but some of them would be cool. Is there anything that jumps out to you?
Yeah, I think Final Fantasy 9 is what I'm most excited about. I replayed that back in 2020, and it would be great to see kind of the whole not remastered, remade treatment like we saw with Final Fantasy 7 remake. A few other things that are interesting on here. Monster Hunter is always interesting to me. Titanfall sounds kind of cool, although I need to catch up on it. I noticed this list had the Talos Principle too. That was one that was super interesting back in the day.
It really?
So there's some really interesting little things here that haven't been like confirmed yet, but if this list is accurate, maybe that's something we can expect. I think BioShock 2022 is on here, although supposedly the studio is having trouble with that game. So I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things here. We'll link the list down in the notes, but I think Final Fantasy was what I was most excited about. Other than one other thing on this list that I touched on, which is Kingdom Hearts 4. So the middle school me and the nostalgic lens makes me still feel kind of excited for Kingdom Hearts, even though I didn't really love the third one and I couldn't get through it when it came out 4 or 5 years ago. But yeah, this kind of leads us very cleanly into our third story, which is that we have official news on Kingdom Hearts 4, which is part of what helps continue to confirm the Nvidia leak. But Kingdom Hearts 4 itself was announced during the Kingdom Hearts 20th anniversary event in Tokyo within the past week. According to the publisher Square Enix, the fourth installment of this game is going to mark the beginning of an epic new storyline titled The Lost Master Arc. It's going to be super easy to keep up with wherever the story is going, no doubt. So if I'll overlay some of the trailer, but in it, you can see Sora, the protagonist, in this new place that looks like a super kind of modern, slightly high-tech city that kind of seems like it's in our world. But apparently this place is called Quadratum. I'm not sure how to pronounce that.
Yes, Quadratum.
And this is a place that Square Enix has described as a large and expansive city set in a gorgeous, realistic world, unlike anything ever seen before in the Kingdom Hearts series. So it's pretty interesting. This game's going to be running in the Unreal Engine 5. So we're expecting this to look just phenomenal. That alone has me pretty excited. Some other interesting details here, though, is that they talk about how Quadratum isn't the real world, but it's similar to an afterworld. If there's one thing the Kingdom Hearts universe needs, it's more realities, I think, to just
Hmm.
fully make it impossible to keep up with. So in this interview that the franchise creator Nomura, he confirmed that um, Sora was going to be in an area, a Tokyo like area. And what you see in the game is kind of an early part of the fourth game. And he discusses how Quadratum is kind of part of this alternate world. And they really want to dive into how everyone has their own perspectives and how perceptions change. And they talk about, I think some of the different characters have different perceptions of the world. From Sora's perspective, Quadratum is an underworld, a fictional one that is different from reality. But from the point of view of the inhabitants on the Quadratum side, the world of Quadratum is reality, and the world where Sora and the others were is the other side, the fictional world. So that sounds kind of cool. I stopped trying to understand Kingdom Hearts a long time ago, so I don't feel the need to understand this. What are your thoughts on Kingdom Hearts 4?
I think that's a safe place to be. Just give up on understanding it, and then just enjoy the fantastical nature of everything and the Disney related themes. Although we didn't see anything Disney in this trailer,
Mm-mm.
but one can assume it will tie in some way.
I would
But
well
yeah, the
we did
trailer.
we did see some bits with like Goofy and Donald, I think, or
Oh,
at
at the
least a
very
mention
end.
of
That's
them.
right. Yeah,
Yeah, so we
yeah.
at least have a couple of characters from Disney.
There we go. So the trailer was impressive, very impressive. Like you said, the Unreal Engine 5 doing work, and I can't wait to see it do more work. I can't wait to see the majority of games running on this or its contemporaries. And so from that standpoint, yeah, the fidelity, just the realism, the photorealism of the world is a little odd. It's kind of like seeing Mario in Donk City, similar similar vibes, but
New Donk City.
new Donk, yeah. So it's but it looks really cool. It's great to look at, and I don't know. I'm the same as you. I actually loved Kingdom Hearts 2, especially growing up. I have the guidebook somewhere. It's a huge, thick book with illustrations, and back in the day, like we used to have. And I
I remember you
probably
take
played
those
that
things
game
to school and look at them. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I probably played that game two or three times as a kid, and then we waited just eons for Kingdom Hearts 3, and I was very much anticipating it, and we finally got it, and I think I got about three-quarters of the way through it, and I just was done for some reason. I don't know what it is for me. I guess the gameplay just is lacking a little bit. It doesn't feel combat doesn't feel very fun in these games to me. I think it needs to evolve a little bit. It's just you're just mashing triangle all the time, and it's a little too one button. So that for me is the biggest thing. If this game can kind of evolve its actual gameplay mechanics to where it feels a little bit better to control Sora or whoever it might be, and combat feels a to have a little bit more depth, then I could be immensely excited for a fourth installment. But as it stands, I'm just kind of, I mean, I'll be looking forward to it. I no doubt will jump into it, but I have a lot of reservations. And like you said, the narrative and the story has all but lost me uh,
I'm
in the recent years.
I'm cool being lost with the narrative and the story if the gameplay's fun. That was my biggest issue with the third one as well. I got a quarter or halfway into it and was just not feeling it. I put it down and I was planning to finish it and I just never have because it
Yeah,
wasn't
same.
wasn't that fun. But the first Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 I loved. I didn't play a lot of the DS and Game Boy. Like I haven't kept up with everything, but the first two games I really really enjoyed when I was younger. So I'm excited about this. I also have some questions like, they do the whole Disney universe thing. I guess, you know, a lot of this presumably is going to take place in Quadratum, but I have to imagine there's still going to be some Disney crossover. And if this is the first in a new arc, presumably 4, 5, and 6, I imagine there's probably going to be some Disney tie-ins. And it makes me wonder, Are they going to tie in with Marvel? Are they going to tie in with Star Wars? That
Oh
feels
my
like it would be,
goodness.
in a way, that feels like it would be jumping the shark, although it's really not
Sora
that.
joins the Avengers.
That's right. You could become a
Oh man,
Jedi
we
or a
live in a
Sith.
world where that can happen. That is just,
Yeah.
I hadn't
We,
even thought of that. The Disney has expanded so much that
the, the
Kingdom Hearts could
stars
go
of
really weird places if it hasn't
the, st-
already.
the stars of like IP ownership and parental company organization have aligned in a way that could happen. Um, I don't know how I feel about that, to be honest, but it feels like jumping the shark. But I don't know how that's any more ridiculous than traipsing through Aladdin or Little Mermaid
No, yeah, I mean, what's
as
the
an anime
difference?
character. Like, what's
Yeah.
the difference? So it could be fun. I mean, Star Wars and Marvel have some cool stuff. I'm sure they could do something kind of fun and interesting. I think the key really is if they can make
Huh.
the gameplay really fun, I'm probably on board.
Oh
And it
yeah, the
visually looks
premise
great.
of
So
Kingdom Hearts is fantastic. You get to frolic through worlds you know and love from Disney.
mhm.
So it's all about the gameplay. And the other thing here is, uh, you know, the announcement here, the trailer. Okay, but will we be playing Kingdom Hearts 4 in the next 3 years? Even, with their track record, it's really hard to say if we're going to be playing this before 2026,
Yeah.
2027.
Well,
Who
I mean,
knows? So
there was like a good 15 years between Kingdom Hearts 2 and 3, something like that.
yeah,
So I don't imagine it'll be that long. It seems like they're kind of now back on the production train for these. But
one would
yeah,
hope. Yeah.
I even with them being on the production train, I'm expecting, like you said, 2026 maybe. I don't know. I guess that's only 4 years away, which is kind of
It's only
crazy.
4 years,
So
which sounds gross to say, but I don't know. I'll be looking forward to more information about this. Surely, I'm
me
not.
too.
I'm not opposed to more Kingdom Hearts.
Same. Yeah. 2026 is 4 years away. Let's back away from the existential cliff that I'm approaching. And instead, let's go towards our fourth story, which is about a follow-up game to No Man's Sky. So Hello Games, the developer of No Man's Sky, which is kind of infamous and then now famous, I guess, or now praised.
Can you
Um,
become famous after being infamous?
if anyone's done it, it is No Man's Sky and Hello
Let us
Games
know in the
because
comments.
that's a classic redemption arc. So you can do it in
There
fiction
you go.
and you can do it as a
Okay.
game company. I don't know if you can do it as a person, but yeah, No Man's Sky obviously really like they hyped it up a ton 7-8 years ago. They made it sound like this was going to reinvent video games themselves. The game launched and was just not in the best state. It was kind of empty, not super fun. Um, People weren't really happy with it, but to the credit of Hello Games and the studio co-founder Sean Murray, like they worked at it for years and they made it a great game. They turned it into something people really love. I haven't played what it's become, but I certainly know that they've achieved the job in the eyes of many. So I'm interested in whatever they do next. Like space type games are always cool, like exploration, space, sci-fi. Um, so we have a little bit of information on the next project they're working on. So Sean Murray, the co-founder of Hello Games, was speaking to IGN, and he talked about their new game, which he says is not a sequel to No Man's Sky, but he says the game is just as ambitious. So I don't know if we should be worried given the launch of the first one, but it seems like they've learned some lessons. So that's kind of exciting. He went on to say that for a while now, we've been working on something pretty ambitious in the background. It's a small team, but we like it that way. Similar to No Man's Sky, it's the kind of project that even if we had 1,000 people working on it, it'd still seem impossible. So that's interesting. I kind of wonder sometimes if the small teams can pull off the impossible better. I know that's not always true, but you look at games like Hollow Knight, uh, and you wonder if cutting out some of the corporate bloat helps them make certain artistic decisions easier and just really focus on what's most important. Um, so we'll see. The game was in very early development as of September of last year. Murray has reassured that while No Man's Sky is still receiving regular updates and isn't finished by a long shot, the two games aren't impacting each other's development. So I guess we'll remains to be seen if that will be able to hold true. Um, so yeah, it's pretty interesting to hear that they're working on their next big thing. Any thoughts about
Yeah.
this future project?
Well, I don't know. The whole thing in general, I've always been impressed with Hello Games and Sean Murray. this whole arc that they've been on. It's really one of the most outstanding in video games. We have just a trash bin full of games that were ambitious and made all these promises and then failed to live up, and then they just got tossed and they moved on to something else, and that's the easy thing to do. And it's kind of crazy how much they have put into No Man's Sky, and that they still have not charged at all for anything
Yeah.
since launch. I genuinely don't understand. I mean, did they just sell enough at launch to keep them going for years? I don't know. I don't know how their books are looking.
Yeah.
It's hard to understand, but
Small
yeah, they
team
haven't charged for
presumably
anything.
helps.
Yeah, so I wish that No Man's Sky was a game I cared more about. I was kind of excited about it, and I've jumped back in periodically, and I've just never been able to not find it kind of boring. I don't know. It hasn't clicked with me, and it's a shame because I really respect what they've done with the game and how much they've added and what it's become to those who care about it. Uh, and so when these quotes that Sean Murray needs to learn what to say though, because these quotes sound so foreboding for someone who went through what he went through with No
Yeah.
Man's Sky, and all the promises he made and all the things he said that didn't end up coming to fruition at launch. You don't want to say that the game you're developing seems impossible if you had even more people helping you. Like, I don't know.
And while you're
But at the
still
same time,
developing your previous game.
yeah. So I mean, that feels kind of sketchy and has me concerned. But at the same time, hopefully they've learned a lot. Like you said, hopefully they've learned a lot from No Man's Sky, and I kind of think maybe they have, simply because of what you said, ripping out that corporate bloat. I think Sean Murray, he seems like a fairly passionate dude, and he's passionate about his games and what they make. And I do think maybe he's learned a lesson from No Man's Sky, and hopefully we'll see evidence of that when we learn more about whatever they're making here. Whereas a corporation, you know, something bombs, they tend to blame it on this, that, and the other thing and move on from it, right? So I have a little bit more hope that this next game might launch a little bit better.
Yeah, me too. It's exciting. It's always nice to hear stories like this in
In
the industry
2026.
with so many duds, so many dumpster fires, dead on arrival, as you've said. This is hopeful. Our fifth story is I don't remember Pokemon Go back in the day, or Pokemon Go to the polls, to quote presidential candidate Hillary Rodham Clinton, in what is arguably the most cringy millennial attempt at connection that I've ever seen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
But Niantic, makers of Pokemon Go, are making a new game. It's augmented reality, similar to Pokemon Go itself, and this is another pet like creature style game. So they're developing a game called Peridot. And it's about caring for and breeding magical critters. It's compared to, I think this was an IGN article.
I was going to say Tamagotchi.
Or The Verge. The Verge very smartly compared this to Tamagotchi mixed with Pokemon Go, which kind of grabbed my attention. Like, Pokemon Go is fun for a minute. I enjoyed it a little bit. I lost interest. Like, some of my friends and family played it for years. I played it for a couple of months and then kind of fell off the Pokemon Go wagon. But it was an interesting concept, and I'm not against this idea. Tamagotchi was something that I coveted as a 5 or 6 year old because some of my friends had them, and then I finally got one, and I killed it because I overfed it. So it was quite sad. Then you just make a new one, so it was fine. But no real consequences with Tamagotchi, not really. But this looks really cool. So the basic premise, according to Niantic, is that after thousands of years of slumber, Peridots are waking to a world vastly different from the one in which they used to roam, and they'll need your help to protect them from extinction. So this means that you'll be caring for creatures, training them, feeding them, playing with them, helping them grow from like cute little babies to full-grown adults before breeding more. One of the interesting things about Peridots is supposedly every creature is going to be unique. They all look different. There's some combination system of handcrafted assets and procedural generation that's happening, as well as distinct personality traits that seems like there's some randomness to that, but also something they call it related to their DNA. So I guess personality traits of creatures that are Peridots that you breed can influence the descendants of those Peridots, which is kind of interesting. One other thing I thought was funny is as soon as they started talking about this, my mind went to kind of my running joke, which is that, oh, this should have NFTs. And thankfully they said, Niantic said Peridots are not NFTs. One of their senior producers, Zaya Fogel, said, it is a really interesting idea. So that's kind of is concerning, but she says it's something that we obviously are looking at, but right now we're focusing on testing and refining the core gameplay experience to ensure it's really fun and accessible. So they're not NFTs, but that doesn't make me
But they could
super hopeful. They could be, and they're thinking about it. So I guess TBD there. But yeah, this looks super interesting. I'm excited to see what happens with this. What do you think about Peridot?
This is really interesting. I like the name.
Yeah,
Peridot it's a pretty cool name. This is from a business standpoint, this is brilliant. Niantic, they've obviously come to be very successful with Pokemon Go. Still doing its thing, still has loyal players. I too played it for a time. In the end, I just found the AR elements more cumbersome than enjoyable, honestly. And I think that was the line I stopped at. I was just like, I have to walk. This isn't a video game, So, but
can't have that.
Exactly. But as far as combining this with Tamagotchi, I think that's absolutely brilliant because not only do you have those who actually have nostalgia for Tamagotchi and will be interested in this for those reasons, Tamagotchi also was just a very good idea. It was addictive. It worked because it was a good idea at the time, and I think it'll work again. We don't really have anything like that. So I think just as an idea, this is a great idea. And I like a lot of what I'm seeing here. It's funny, actually, reading over the whole DNA thing and how each Peridot is unique gave me a lot of No Man's Sky vibes. Because they too talked about, everything's procedurally generated. Every planet will be different from the last. And come release, you see the what's the word? The shortcomings or the limitations of procedural generation. I mean, it's limited to what you can input, right? And that was the case with No Man's Sky. You okay, this planet's different, but it's kind of the same,
But how different? Yeah.
But how different and how many variations are there? Because they mentioned, okay, there's going to be archetypes, unicorn, Cheeto, whatever. So we'll see. We'll see how effective that is. I always tend to lean more towards, I like handcrafted things, handcrafted experiences, handcrafted creatures, environments over procedural generation procedural generation. Anytime I see that word, it's actually a bit of a turnoff for me when it comes to a game. But we'll see. Maybe tech has come a long way pertaining to this, and they'll be able to pull it off pretty well. And like you said, the quote about NFTs is not overly inspiring. Like the fact that they're not currently NFTs is great, but her quote specifically was it was kind of like, hey, thanks for the idea. Yeah, we're definitely going to look into that. It's almost what it felt like, but we'll see.
I felt more like, we're already looking into that. And it's hearing it's a really interesting idea. It feels like they are very interested in pursuing that potentially. So,
I'm sure they are. If they could make it work, it's all about money grubbing, right? So,
I mean, NFTs, they do bank once in a great while. So companies are still looking at them with interest, but yeah, I agree. Hopefully there's no NFTs on the horizon for this. The procedural generation, I don't really care one way or the other. If that's the linchpin of the experience, then I'm not super excited because, like you said, I don't think that truly offers that much that's compelling in a game. I'd rather have mechanics that are fun, creatures that are cool, but they have really good archetypes, and then the procedural generation adds just a little bit of extra variety. Sweet, I'm fine with that. But I think for me, I also I'm hopeful that the AR works a little bit better for me this time. I don't go places or go outside as much as possible. So I like the idea of a video game getting me to exercise,
Yeah.
getting me out walking around, getting me to engage with the community more. In practice, that never works quite as well as I want. You look at the Nintendo Wii and it's like, this is going to make us exercise while playing video games. Mostly no. Maybe a little,
Mostly
but
no.
for the most part, no. And I think AR too. There was a couple of months where we were walking around. I also lived in San Francisco at the time, so it was a little bit more compelling to go out and walk around. Whereas now I'm in the suburbs, and so I don't know. I guess we'll have to see. But I think this will be fun. I'm going to try it. I'm sure my daughter is going to absolutely love this. So, all right, our sixth story. There's a new Subnautica game that's in development. We probably had a hunch about this, but it's really nice to hear it sort of confirmed. So Unknown Worlds, the developers of Subnautica and Below Zero, have confirmed this through a job listing. So this is, I wouldn't call it a rumor because they have a job listing for a senior narrative designer. The job listing says Unknown Worlds is seeking a senior narrative designer to join the team working on the next game in the Subnautica universe. This person will collaborate closely with the team to tell compelling, dramatic stories in the context of the game experience, while also defining the history and lore of a new science fiction world and its alien inhabitants. So, I mean, based off of that, we can surmise that there's a third game. It's on a new planet. Aliens will be a part of that as well. All of that's awesome. That's not a whole lot to go off of, but we both have really enjoyed Subnautica, so that got me excited. What do you think about this?
This is awesome. I had no idea about this. Like you said, you would assume they've moved on to something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I would have hoped they moved on to something even before Below Zero came out, but I think it's a smaller studio, so that's a little bit harder for them to do. I love Subnautica. It's one of the original as well as Below Zero. They're both in like top 10 of all time video games for me. So
same.
I
Actually,
can't wait to see. Yeah, I can't wait to see what these guys do. I will absolutely be there for it, and it's nice to see confirmation. It has me wondering. So it does say a new planet. Where does it say that? New science fiction world and its alien inhabitants.
Mm-hmm.
So that's vague enough that it has me wondering. And I won't go ahead and spoil. What is it? I keep thinking Forbidden West for some reason. Subnautica Below Zero.
Yeah,
man, my brain today. But
I mean, don't spoil Forbidden West either, because I haven't finished it yet. So
that would be so hard to do, actually, for me. But Below Zero, yeah, I won't spoil it. But this has me wondering: will this be a sequel to Below Zero, or is this just entirely separate from Subnautica? Will this
how
be
direct
underwater?
a sequel will it be?
Yeah. There's a lot of questions here, and I had these questions immediately after finishing Below Zero, and as much as I would love to see them, at the end of the day, I want to see them do whatever they want to do, because they seem
they're two for
like
two.
they're 2 for 2, but man, they're good at underwater exploration and that kind of that slight horror experience. Throw in a little bit of survival, and they just did it so well. And as much as it's like, at what point do you stop cranking out Subnauticas? I don't think 3 is the number. I think you crank out another one. Like, I think they're just that good. So I don't know if this takes place not underwater, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm sure they can do it, but no one else is quite doing what they were able to do with Subnautica. Most games you hate being underwater, and you kind of do in Subnautica too, but
for a different reason.
Good. The gameplay is good. It feels good to move around. So it feels a very specific void in the industry, and I would love to see them continue that, and I can't wait to find out more about this. I hope this isn't 2026, Zach.
I hope so too. I think other games underwater, you just hate moving around. You're like, oh, I have to get through this again. Subnautica, it feels amazing to be underwater, but you're just terrified the whole time because it is so transportive and immersive. This is exciting though. Either way, I'm excited. I could see a space element being interesting, but they've confirmed this is another planet. So I guess we'll have to see what exactly that looks like. Our seventh
Probably like a
story,
planet.
probably a planet. Our seventh story, we're here actually to give our loss, or to mourn our losses,
Oh,
give our
this is sad.
condolences. Dearly beloved. Do they say dearly beloved for funerals, or is that for weddings? Dearly beloved, we're gathered
What's
here
the
today.
difference? Oh, just kidding.
Oh,
I don't
that was
know. I
good.
don't know.
That was quick. Hopefully, your wife does not watch this episode.
Yeah, right.
Um, so yeah, we're here to mourn the loss of Vicarious Visions, which officially has now merged into Blizzard. So Vicarious Visions is a studio whose most recent games include Crash Bandicoot, the Insane Trilogy, which I know you really enjoyed, and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2, which I think those came out last year. The studio announced today that it has officially merged with Blizzard and will now work exclusively on Blizzard games. So this is a bit, maybe a bit sad, because the games they'd worked on were so cool, and I don't know, people weren't super excited at the prospect of them working either on just larger Blizzard projects or like Activision stuff like Call of Duty. Some of the sentiment on Twitter is that, this is a shame to see. One person was saying, "Hope that's undone when you're part of Microsoft." Some people are saying, "Thanks for Crash and Tony Hawk. You all deserve better." One person said, "Hope you enjoy Call of Duty Operation Hawk," which is mildly witty. So I guess we'll see. Some people have kind of speculated maybe the Xbox boss, the X boss.
The X boss.
What an appropriate
That is
slip
definitely
of the tongue.
what Phil Spencer tells people to refer to him as.
What an incredible
Yes, Mr.
Freudian
X-Boss.
slip. I love that, actually. So Phil Spencer, the X-Boss, said in January that he's eager to bring back some of the Activision games he loved as a kid. So maybe that includes some Vicarious Visions classics. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. It'd be great to have the studio back, because I think they were doing some really great stuff, and just having them kind of part of the larger amorphous collective of talent is less exciting. So I don't know. Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, totally. This is kind of a continuation of RIP Vicarious Visions from like last year or even the year before, since I don't know what years are. But to see them get kind of absorbed into Call of Duty was really the pinnacle of sadness. This story for me is sad, but I don't know, like you said, it comes with a hint of hope, or maybe copium, as the kids say. But man, they did such a good job with Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2. I mean, just nailed it. Crushed it. That game was just perfect. It felt so good to play. It was just such an accurate homage to the originals. And same with Crash, the Insane Trilogy. Just they do such a good job. The quality is through the roof with their remakes that they've done. They also have done great work with Destiny back when they were helping with expansions. That's really when Destiny, I think, was putting out the grandest experiences in their expansions. I know they're kind of firing on all cylinders right now, a lot of people think, but no doubt their scope and their style has changed since losing these studios that kind of surrounded them, like Vicarious Visions. And so I don't know, how many people have left Vicarious Visions since they got absorbed into Call of Duty because the direction of the studio was changing. That happens all the time. We look at a logo or a name and we think, oh, Vicarious Visions, they made these games. How many of those people are still there? We don't know, because when changes like this happen, people leave. But if any of the spirit of the studio is still there, I really hope that whatever X-Boss decides, like you said, he's mentioned bringing back some classics, and Phil Spencer, he has this childish love for video games, you can tell. And so I think there is hope that he utilizes Vicarious Visions in a better way than maybe they are right now. And we'll wait and see. But yeah, if the spirit of the studio is still intact, I just hope that they get to flex their creativity and their talent in ways other than just pumping out Call of Duty DLC or things like that. So we'll see. Hopefully they can come back from the grave. But for today, it's it's a moment of silence, I guess, because yeah, they've done some good work over the years.
That's all we can do is hope, and I would love to see it. So we'll have to see if Vicarious Vision arises anew as a zombie studio
Like
to
a
produce new
phoenix.
things for us, like a phoenix zombie. All right, let's move on. Our eighth story: is PlayStation Plus a bad deal for game developers? That seems to be what the Oddworld Soulstorm developer is claiming. So Lorne Lanning, founder of Oddworld Inhabitants, has said recently that Oddworld Soulstorm, being a free game on PlayStation Plus, was devastating for their sales. And so I think this was on PlayStation Plus. Was this late last year? I don't remember. Or was it early this year? I can't remember.
It was right at the launch. So it was either late 2020 or early 2021.
Okay, yeah, I apparently can't do time either, but either way, so yeah, the game was apparently downloaded close to 4 million times through PS
Launch of the
Plus.
PS5, by the way, not the game, obviously,
Right,
but it was the
right,
launch of the game as well. But yeah,
right. So Oddworld Soulstorm was downloaded close to 4 million times through PlayStation Plus, which is way more than their studio expectations. Apparently, they were estimating 50 to 100,000, so they achieved that goal and then some. But recently, Lanning has said that this was more of a double-edged sword. So apparently, Soulstorm was free to download in April 2021, the same month that it launched. And well, here we go. It's always in the article. I ask, like, when did this happen? Sure enough, like 2 paragraphs down, it's going to say it and make me
yeah,
look
but
a
we love
fool.
hearing you ask.
Great. So anyway, Soulstorm was free to download in April 2021, the same month it launched. And while Sony has never made clear how it comes to this agreement with developers, it's understood that some type of like one-off payment was made for this arrangement. And Lanning had explained that their company and its partner developers were struggling when they were approached by Sony. So he said they were hitting a bunch of legacy technical debt issues, talent issues, struggling across the board. So the developer needed more money to be able to finish the game. And they didn't expect launch sales on the PS5 to earn out whatever it was that Sony offered. So they decided to go with it. They were supposed to deliver in January, apparently. So at the time, there wasn't going to be any game machines. We were like, how many could we possibly sell? But he said we needed the money to complete the project, and we thought we did a pretty good deal. In January, there's no way we'll serve more than this. But apparently what happened is the COVID-19 pandemic pushed Soulstorm back 3 additional months. So at this point, there were more PS5s available. So despite Sony basically funding the final portion of development, Lanning said that the 4 million downloads were devastating. I think kind of his implication being that some of these sales they would have realized if it weren't for the pandemic, and therefore they would have made more money had they not taken this lump sum from Sony to be part of PlayStation Plus. And so he says, because it slipped to April, we had the highest downloaded game on PS5, and it was, I think, close to 4 million units. And it was devastating. What I don't know. I'm kind of torn on this. Like, I don't know that there's any evidence to suggest that they really lost out. Like, how would they have gotten these 4 million sales if the game wasn't free on PlayStation Plus? Of course not. How many would they have gotten? I have no idea. But that's kind of like the whole point, right? The whole point is you get some type of payment from PlayStation, and then you're getting a much larger audience that you're put in front of because you're featured in PS Plus and you're free for that month for players. So this feels a little bit like diverting the blame of your game onto other things, but I'm curious what you think about this.
Unfortunately, you pretty much hit on exactly how I feel about this whole article. This whole thing, I don't know. I'm not in, what's the name of the studio?
Oddworld Inhabitants.
Oddworld Inhabitants. Okay.
It's a strange name for a company.
Yeah, I'm not working over at Oddworld Inhabitants, not even part-time. So I don't know what it's like over there. But this whole thing reeks of a studio that has just been mismanaged and run poorly. I looked it up here. It was originally set to release in 2017. It was delayed to 2019 and then into 2020 and then into 2021. So, I mean, that is just,
it's not even like this was a cyberpunk type game, it's
No. So to look at PlayStation Plus, it really does feel like a series of errors here or misfortunes for the studio. And to kind of at the end of the day, just look at PS Plus and be like, oh man, that really screwed us over. It's like, well, if you hadn't delayed your game 5 years, you probably wouldn't have been in so much debt or this, that, and the other thing. Like there's just a lot of other things going on, it seems here. And then also estimating 50 to 100,000 downloads. I don't know what that's based off of. I don't know if according to other PS Plus titles that's fairly accurate, but clearly they just misjudged this. And then again, further delaying, another delay by the studio. And granted, as of 2020, delays became much more understandable just with the state of the world. But it just seems like the delays and the workload and the management of the studio is more of the core of the issue. And to look at PS Plus and be like, like he said, this game probably wouldn't have even reached the finish line without the deal from Sony. So it's kind of hard to look at Sony and be like, oh man, that deal really messed us up. I don't know. And for me, this is a little extraneous, but man, I hated that game. I was kind of looking forward to it because you're on the PS5 and you're like, oh, it's a PS5 free game. You're looking for anything to play on the new system. And I downloaded it and I got like 4 or 5 hours in and I just got to a point where I was like, I do not like this game. It is frustrating to play. It doesn't communicate things terribly well. And it is very odd. What a great title. It's odd in a way I just didn't click with. So anyways, those are my thoughts. Hopefully they're able to pull through whatever disaster this was. But I certainly don't think that their deal was the core of the issue here.
Yeah, agreed. And I mean, we have other developers of games like Rocket League and Fall Guys who've said that the PlayStation Plus service was actually really helpful for them establishing their games and getting a much larger player base. Granted, I think those games are a little different in the sense that you're looking for a large pool of players. There's a lot of multiplayer components there. So it's a little different, but this is not a sentiment that's widely shared by developers.
Yeah. And I know for a fact, like he's looking at 4 million downloads and that number is high. That's a lot of potential sales. And as a business owner, you can't help but feel a little bit of regret if you're hurting for money and you're looking at 4 million downloads when you're expecting 50 to 100,000. Like that's a huge gap.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I would have never purchased this game. And I know that a pretty hefty portion of that 4 million probably are in the same boat as me, where you've got a PS5, you've got PS Plus, you're going to download whatever's on it for the first 6 months. Right. And so how many of those really would have been purchases? I think it would have been a pretty small percentage of that 4 million, which, maybe would have made a difference at the end of the day. But, they were in the bed they made, or at least they were in a bed somewhere they did what they did to get out of it. So,
yep. They lied down in it, tucked themselves in, woke up.
I actually don't know how this, Sony.
I don't know how to progress this metaphor, but I agree with you.
They got in bed and then they accepted a deal from Sony, and here we are.
That's right. All right, let's move on to our 9th story. Sony and Nintendo are updating their subscription and renewal guidelines following an investigation in the UK. And this is really related to like UK regulatory policy around competition, like from their Competition and Markets Authority. So both Nintendo and Sony have had to change how they market their respective subscription offerings in response to this investigation. So the UK regulator had been investigating all 3 of the big console manufacturers, though Microsoft basically got ahead of the issue in January and rolled out changes to their Xbox Live Gold and Game Pass programs. But now Nintendo and Sony need to essentially get up to speed, at least for the UK. And often these types of changes tend to be things where companies just start to treat them more universally, expecting that where it's consumer protection, data protection, a lot of times other regions will follow suit. So we saw this with like the California Confidentiality Protection Act, or CCPA, whatever that was. You'd see like data policies where these large corporations are like, okay, we should probably roll this out across the board. So Sony has said that what it's going to start doing is contact long-term inactive PlayStation Plus customers who are still being billed to remind them, hey, do you want to cancel this? Is this an unwanted subscription? And then eventually stop making payments, though they don't really specify what eventually looks like. Nintendo apparently is going to alter their services to offer better guidance for customers, though it sounds like they will no longer sell you the Nintendo Switch Online subscription with automatic renewal as the default setting. You'll have to manually enable this. So if you sign up for a month or a year, it'll just run out unless you go change that setting yourself, which is kind of interesting. I think these protections can be helpful for consumers. I know I fall into the trap all the time of discovering a service I signed up for a year ago that I have not used since. In January, we saw Microsoft make its auto renewal policies clearer by stating when and by how much a customer would be charged the next time they are billed. And then it said it would contact existing customers and offer a refund if they had resubscribed by accident. And like Sony, they'll contact inactive members and ultimately stop taking further payments, which is very pro-consumer. And I think that is awesome. So I think these are good changes overall. I'm curious if you have any other thoughts about this.
No, you answered my question. I was like, why are they doing this? Oh, because they have to. That's pretty much the only reason anyone would make this change. So
because they're benevolent companies, Levi.
Exactly. So you love to see it, and it's better for the consumer. And now we just need someone to come after Sony for their refund policy on games, and then we'll be golden.
Hopefully we get some regulation somewhere that can kind of kick them into gear. Our 10th story also relates to Sony as well as Lego, or at least Lego's parent company, which I'm not sure if it's pronounced Kirkby or KIRKBI. Anyway, Sony and Lego are investing $2 billion into Epic Games. A $2 billion investment. That's humongous. I mean, it makes sense. Epic Games is huge already. They're doing humongous things within the industry
as well.
Yeah. So today, Epic Games announced a $2 billion round of funding to advance the company's vision. This is an interesting part, to build the metaverse and support its continued growth. Really curious what Epic's vision of the metaverse will look like. I mean, you think metaverse right now, you often think Facebook, because they're very much trying to take over the term. Originally, the term's from like a science fiction novel, but Facebook changed their name to Meta, and they're trying to be the metaverse. But I feel like if anybody is more suited to do it, it's a company like Epic, who is built around games and entertainment, versus Facebook, who is built around your crazy uncle's conspiracy theories.
A bit of a metaverse in a sense.
Yeah.
Fortnite has already kind of achieved that on some level. So
yeah, that's a good point. So I think if anyone's going to do a metaverse that I'm interested in, Epic is a lot more likely for it than Meta/Facebook. So this round includes investments from the existing investors, Sony, as well as Kirkby, which is the family-owned holding and investment company behind the Lego Group. Each of them will be investing $1 billion respectively. So that's just crazy. And then they go on to say, Lego that's not Lego. Sony goes on to say, as a creative entertainment company, we are thrilled to invest in Epic to deepen our relationship in the metaverse field, a space where creators and users share their time. We are also confident that Epic's expertise, including their powerful game engine, combined with Sony's technologies, will accelerate our various efforts, such as the development of new digital van experiences in sports, as well as our virtual production initiatives. So this makes a lot of sense. Sony is working on, they have their Sony VR 2 that's coming out. They've been dabbling in the space for a while. Epic Games, they're working on Unreal Engine 5. It'll be really interesting to see how these potential technologies could come together in a way that is a viable consumer product. Because when I look at Facebook, I don't see a viable consumer product, whereas with this, maybe. And then the statement goes on to say, Epic Games is known for building playful and creative experiences and empowering creators large and small, says Søren Thorup Sørensen. That's Danish. I don't know if I got that right. He's the CEO of Kirkby. And he says, a proportion of our investments is focused on trends we believe will impact the future world that we and our children will live in. This investment will accelerate our engagement in the world of digital play and we are pleased to be investing in Epic Games to support their continued growth journey with a long-term focus toward the future metaverse. Which this was interesting too, because when I first heard Lego's investing, I don't know, it maybe isn't immediately obvious, but I guess in some ways it is. They're focused on like, what is the future of play and engaging with products that entertain people. And we've seen some really interesting Lego related games beyond like Lego Star Wars or whatever. There's the new Lego Brick Quest or something with bricks. I'll overlay a video where it's like a puzzle solving game with digital Legos. So I'm kind of excited to see what they have in mind here. I think you could also envision something like Roblox or Minecraft using Legos in some type of virtual metaverse space. I don't know. It's a humongous investment. I guess Epic's equity is now at $31.5 billion. So what do you think about this?
I don't know what I think about Roblox. I've never heard someone say that before. I've always heard Roblox, but as far as the whole metaverse thing,
Roblox is the off-brand.
Roblox is the off-brand. I'll have to ask my 13-year-old friend what he thinks, how to say it. He'll tell me. But as far as the metaverse goes, I don't know. I feel like we'll see it when we see it. And I feel like I almost have this thought that people need to stop trying to, like, this is kind of a reductive, moronic thought of mine. But my thought is like, people need to stop trying to make the metaverse, and the metaverse will happen. It will just happen at some point, right? We've already had certain metaverses happen in certain communities and games. But if I were putting together a dream team of people to go figure out what the metaverse is, I mean, you could do worse than Epic, Sony, and Lego. Like, that's actually a pretty solid. I almost trust the three of those together to figure out what a metaverse is. Much more than I trust Mark Zuckerberg. So this is interesting. Also, just from a standpoint of Sony getting further involved with Epic in general, I could be wrong, but I kind of like it because for now, Epic, they have certain. They seem to hold to certain morals right now, and a lot of them tend to be consumer friendly, and that can change at any point. But I do see that in contrast to how Sony operates, and I'm not quite sure how these two things mesh. But I would like to see Sony, more often than not, it'll mean that Epic will become more like Sony. But it would be nice to see some of Epic's business dealings on the consumer side transition over to Sony more and more, but likely we won't see any of that. This is all way above any of that that's happening. So I don't know. It's vaguely interesting. I don't know what it all means right now.
I don't either. Will Sony drag Epic down to the lowest common denominator, or do rising tides lift all boats? We don't
Lego,
know.
That horrible company. Someone's got to fix Lego.
Lego is amazing other than their price. They're just ridiculously expensive. So
that's true.
You'd like to think that metaverse Legos will be cheaper, but somehow I think corporations will love to find ways
they're
to
more
charging
expensive.
us just
NFT
as much,
Legos.
if not more. NFT Legos. Yeah, what's a worse dystopia? Ending up in NFT Legoland in the metaverse, or ending up in Mark Zuckerberg's horrorscape?
Mark Zuckerberg.
Hey, and welcome. Today, we're going to talk about the metaverse.
Yeah, definitely. That's not even a question there. All right. Well, speaking of the metaverse and Mark Zuckerberg, that brings us to our 11th story, which is that Meta/Facebook will be charging creators fees up to almost 50% to sell virtual wares in the metaverse. I had to read this a few times to make sure I was reading this correctly. So Meta is going to charge creators fees up to 47.5% to sell virtual wares in its metaverse, which is significantly more than Apple charges developers in its App Store, which is 30%. In a blog post Monday, Meta said it's testing virtual sales inside of its metaverse platform, Horizon Worlds, not Forbidden West. This should be the Forbidden Horizon. But anyway, it said creators will be able to sell things like fashion accessories for users' avatars and exclusive access to parts of their customized virtual worlds. Wow, that makes me want to rip out my credit card right now. Meta and its CEO Mark Zuckerberg have previously criticized Apple for charging developers a 30% fee for in-app purchases via the App Store. Zuckerberg said in a Facebook post in November that Meta was making changes to help Metaverse creators evade Apple's App Store fee. And it's just such cognitive dissonance to hear Mark Zuckerberg say, quote, "As we build for the Metaverse, we're focused on unlocking opportunities for creators to make money from their work. The 30% fees that Apple takes on transactions make it harder to do that. So we're updating our subscriptions product now so that creators can earn more." So that's just funny because what Meta is proposing here is a platform fee of 30% for sales made on MetaQuest, not NeverQuest, MetaQuest. Its virtual reality system, which was formerly known as Oculus, which is, I think, a better name. On top of that, Horizon Worlds, which is Meta's Metaverse system, will charge a 25% sales fee. So this means that Meta will take a cut of up to 47.5% from the sales price, which will leave the seller with 52.5% of the transaction. So they reached out to a Meta spokesperson who confirmed to Insider that the math was correct, which is a hilarious statement to have to make. Hey, this seems egregious. No, the math is correct. It is egregious. Here's what the spokesperson from Meta said. If a creator sells an item for $1, then the MetaQuest store fee would be 30 cents and the Horizon platform fee would be 17 cents, 25% of the remainder, leaving 53 cents for the creator before any applicable taxes, the spokesperson said. And then they continued, over time, we plan to bring Horizon Worlds to more platforms. And so the platform fee won't always be going to Meta. As Horizon Worlds roll out to more platforms like mobile, we expect these to charge their own fee. The Horizon Worlds fee, which is 25% of the remainder, would be applied for any relevant hardware platform fee that has been applied. So, and then their VP of Horizon told The Verge, "We think it's a pretty competitive rate in the market. We believe in the other platforms being able to have their share." So this just feels like platform stacking on platform, and I just don't know how you talk about wanting people to make money through selling wares in a metaverse and then talk about them getting half of the proceeds. That's egregious. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, you see the problem with what Apple is doing is that money they're charging goes to Apple and not to Mark Zuckerberg. That was the real problem Mark had.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know what you want me to say. The Facebook, Meta, they are just so out of touch, it seems, with everything we hear coming out of that company right now. They seem to have lost touch completely. So this is just another one to throw on the pile.
No, Zuck is just a normal guy. Haven't you seen him doing a barbecue and talking about baby back ribs? I'll post a little clip here. You can all see.
I did see that.
Here, I'll show you just how human Mark Zuckerberg is.
You guys making for dinner? Sweet Baby Ray's barbecue sauce, I hope. Delicious. But hopefully for Canadian Thanksgiving, you get to eat a lot of Sweet Baby Ray's barbecue sauce.
For sure.
Totally. He's definitely a human person.
Definitely a human. Yeah, it's there's not much more to say here. It's frustrating to hear the hypocrisy of like blasting Apple for a 30% fee and then proposing your own 30% fee plus a platform fee. I get the idea that there might be multiple platforms utilizing the metaverse, but I don't know. I feel like we should be enabling people to create on these things if we want people to use them. It honestly feels self-defeating for Facebook to be doing this.
It does.
At least right now.
Because Epic is clearly fighting a different battle. And if you're a creator of any kind, who are you going to go to? You're not going to go to Meta. I mean,
as a consumer, you're already at Epic because of Fortnite and all the other in their game store. Like, I'm sorry, but consumers aren't going, like, other than your insane aunt and your uncle with his crackpot conspiracy theories who maybe play Farmville on Facebook. Like, you're not going there for your games probably. So Meta has a humongous uphill battle if they want to be serious in the space. And this just feels like,
I mean, there is competition is great for the consumer, and it's kind of like, Meta. I feel like I have to say Facebook every time I say Meta because it's such a generic word. but it's like they don't realize there is competition. They're like completely oblivious to the fact that there will be competition for this, and they're setting themselves up to fail with these models. So
Yeah. I think the thing with Meta is they have a lot of money they can throw at it. Obviously, Facebook and Instagram and their other products rake in a lot of ad money, which they can fuel, and they are fueling into Meta development. But the decisions they're making, I think, are strategically questionable. And I would argue they're not really solving actual consumer problems or consumer things that they're interested in. Whereas Epic, I mean, now Epic has a pretty big investment and they make a lot of money from Fortnite as well. So yeah, they really do have, despite the fact that they are Facebook, they have a lot of competition ahead of them. So we'll have to see. I get it's sad that this isn't really surprising from Meta. I would love to see them like try and make a better product out of this, but this does not instill a lot of hope. All right, so our final few stories are on our release radar. So we have a couple of things coming out, and then we have one thing delayed. So maybe let's start with the bad news first. And that is that The Witcher 3 next gen upgrade has been delayed. So this is interesting. Apparently, the Witcher 3 next gen version, which I think was supposed to be on PC, PS5, and Xbox Series X, was being developed by Saber Interactive, which is a third party. But now CD Projekt is bringing it in-house. They said in a tweet the other day, "We have decided to have our in-house development team conduct the remaining work on the next-gen version of The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. We are currently evaluating the scope of work to be done and thus have to postpone the Q2 release until further notice." So we'll update you as soon as we can. Thank you for your understanding. So I guess not surprising they're bringing it in-house. They now have to divvy up more of their resources toward this. Instead of it coming out this quarter that we're currently in, it's TBD, indefinite. Not the end of the world, but I don't know. CD Projekt doesn't have a great track record recently with managing multiple games effectively. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on this.
So it's been postponed indefinitely. Is that what I'm basically reading here?
Yeah, they didn't give a date. They said we'll update you.
So it's just indefinite.
They said further notice. Yeah. They didn't say it's on hold.
I don't know. This is kind of a bummer. I never played Witcher 3, and I just kind of, peripherally was looking to this date as the time to do it, and it just keeps getting pushed and pushed, and the game gets older and older, right? And I don't know what I don't know what the studio is doing anymore right now, because they just announced they're working on a new Witcher. They also are still working on Cyberpunk, trying to fix it, and supposedly DLC. They've said they're going to support that game for years, is essentially what they've told us. And they're still trying to get out this update to Witcher 3. It just kind of feels like they're behind at every stage of what they're working on. Yeah. And I don't know how they get caught back up, and how it happens anytime this year or next year. Like, it just feels, I don't know. It feels like they've really, really dug a hole in each of their IPs and installments. And
yeah,
I don't know. Kind of a bummer. Hopefully they can rebound.
Yeah. I kind of hope that them starting to rely on the Unreal Engine 5 for Witcher 4 will help them a little bit, because they can focus less and less on development for their Red engine, which is what's supporting. I don't know if that supports Witcher 3, but it's definitely what's supporting Cyberpunk. But at the same time, they now have to learn to use Unreal. They probably have to hire talent or train their talent to use Unreal. So it's like it's going to be a while before they're up to speed even from that. And there's going to be this kind of crossover period where they're using the Red engine to continually support Cyberpunk while also developing the fourth Witcher installment. And now they're doing the next gen upgrade for Witcher 3, which I don't even know what that's running on. So I have no idea how they're like, it feels a lot. The more time goes on, the more it feels like they're just, entropy is just unraveling them at the seams.
Yeah. It feels like that thing where people who multitask think they're getting so much done, and in reality, they're getting less done than if they focused on one thing, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what they need to do here. They need to focus on getting this update out for Witcher 3, get that done, and then tie up whatever you're going to tie up with Cyberpunk, and then just, if they want to support it for years, I guess fine, but I really think they need to wash their hands of their previous engine, get everything done, and move on to Unreal Engine 5 and move forward with their lives, because otherwise they're going to be trying to juggle all this for the next couple of years, and it's just going to it's just going to end in
another
these continual
Cyberpunk.
delays.
Yeah,
Yeah,
continual
so
delays or really botched expectations at launch because of the delays. So I hope
yeah.
that's not the case. I hope they can manage it, but this is definitely concerning. And Witcher 3 is a great game. I would love to play a remastered version because it's kind of dated at this point. I would just love a touched because it's such a good game. I would love a touched up one. It'd be cool if you could try it out. But as of now, TBD. Sounds like they're not just dropping it entirely, but I don't know. Maybe that would be for the best. But well, on to brighter news. Our 13th story, Halo Infinite Season 2, has been announced. It's launching in early May. So Halo Infinite's second season, May 3 is what so 3rd of May. Their second season is going to be called
I
Lone
like May
Wolves.
3.
May 3. The season is called Lone Wolves, and it's going to add a new battle pass system, new maps, additional modes. There's a trailer that was released just this past week that shows off some of those maps. There's one arena map that's called Catalyst and one big team battle map called Breaker. And that one appears to have a big lava pit separating parts of the map, which that's cool. Lava's always good. Yes, please.
More lava, yeah.
More, keep the lava coming. The new modes were outlined last month by 343. Apparently, there's going to include a free-for-all elimination mode called Last Spartan Standing, a new one called Land Grab, and an updated version of King on the Hill. So there's also going to be some other tweaks, and let's see. I think there's going to be there's a few other things. I'll link to the article and you can see what else is here. But this is cool. It also confirmed that players will be able to earn 1,000 CR, which is Infinite's credit system with the premium battle pass. So microtransactions. There you go. What do you think about Halo Infinite Season 2?
I think it has the perfect home. That's about all I think about it, because if I think of Halo Infinite apart from Game Pass, I think about a game that is trying to exist between two different realities, right? Like back in the day, Halo would release an installment, and that was back when, even though it was online, the game kind of was what it was. You'd have your campaign, and then you'd have your multiplayer part, and you'd play that with your friends until the next one came out. And now Halo Infinite aims to be this more live service type thing, but I don't think it has quite the chops to compete with the Fortnites and the Apex Legends, right? At least not right now. Maybe 343 will continue to get better at that. But regardless, I do know people who play multiplayer Halo have said it's fantastic, and that 343 nearly perfectly captured the essence of Halo in the gameplay. And so I think it has a great home on Game Pass. And, if enough people keep playing it because it's a part of Game Pass, and, Xbox is fine to fund things for a decent amount of time before they see return, right? So I really think we could see Halo continue to get better. I know a lot of people have come out and said, oh, Halo's dead, its player count is way low. Thanks to Game Pass, I think Microsoft just wants these games on their system, something that'll keep you coming back from time to time and keep your subscription up. And because of that, Halo might have the chance to learn and grow, whereas other live services can't do it because they're not a part of Microsoft the way this is. So I don't have too many thoughts specifically about it. I have yet to play the new Halo. I thought I would. I thought this would be my first time jumping in, and it came and went, and I still haven't done it. So if you're out there enjoying it, good for you. You get a new season coming up.
Yep. Same. I thought I was going to jump back into it with this one, and haven't gotten around to it, but it looks mostly positive. And check out the second season. That's kind of cool. So that's coming in May if you're interested. Our 14th and penultimate story, Bugsnax, is coming to all platforms with a DLC. Bugsnax is kind of a puzzle adventure game, kind of this eccentric, weird game where you're on an island and all of the bugs are made of food, and you're a weird looking creature, and you catch the Bugsnax, and it's about
picture an adorable nightmare, and that's what Bugsnax is.
That is an apt description. So yeah, the Isle of Bugsnax, or the Isle of Big Snacks, is the very closely named DLC. So from Bugsnax to Big Snacks, presumably you're getting some like prehistoric morsels here, and this will send players to a new island
Morsels.
with new food bug things to catch. So I guess if you liked Bugsnax, that's exciting. There's more of it. I think we both played a couple of hours, and it wasn't quite for me. It was kind of interesting for a minute, but I lost interest pretty quickly. But if you liked it, there's another one. And then of course it's coming to new platforms. So, we played it on PS5. It was included with PlayStation when the PS5 first came out. But it'll now be on Nintendo Switch, Xbox One,
now
and
everyone
Series
can
X,
have Bugsnax and Big Snacks. Prehistoric morsels is a great phrase. I like that. That's fantastic. And this game for me, this game really was. You know how sometimes the scarier something tries to be, the less scary it is. This game was like so innocently terrifying. It truly gave me bad vibes. Like not many games give me bad vibes, and there's nothing wrong with this game. I think it's probably a pretty fun game. I know a lot of people love it. Man, for me, after like 5 or 6 hours, I was like, I'm just not digging this. Every once in a while, I'll pick up a game where sometimes loneliness can be a game mechanic that's good, and that's subjective from person to person.
Yeah,
but for some reason, but every once in a while there comes a game where that loneliness is haunting and just feels very, very like empty and void. I can't perfectly explain it, but I had this feeling while playing Bugsnax, combined with just the complete weirdness of the world and the characters. And the characters that you interact with and their stories are also kind of creepy. Like the way they talk to you and the little quests they have for you. There's just everything is kind of off in this world. And and so I ran away from it. It was an adorable nightmare to me. But a lot of people love this game. And yeah, it's got a lot of puzzle elements, and it's all about trying to figure out how to capture different Bugsnax. And they all have different mechanics to capture them and stuff. So now everyone will get to experience the horror that is Bugsnax and the Island of Big Snacks.
Yeah, if these terrifying creatures have not taken up residence in your mind and your subconscious and your dreams, in every waking moment, following you, whispering in the shadows, if that hasn't happened, then you can check out the Isle of Big Snacks. The new version of Bugsnax, which includes this DLC, is $24.99 at launch. That's including a 20% discount, apparently, that you can get just for the game. It doesn't make it clear whether that's on every platform. But check it out. It's kind of a weird one, but some people really like it. Our final story is really just a quick update, a sale alert. And I saw this earlier today when I was looking on the Nintendo Switch online store, and Olli World is 20% off on Switch right now. Sale ends April 18th, so in a couple of days. This is a game I really want to pick up. 20% is not a huge sale, but it's also a somewhat noticeable sale, and it's a relatively new game. So if you're interested in picking this up on Switch, now might be a good time to pick it up. I'm strongly considering it. Part of me thinks I should wait until it's even cheaper, but the other side of it is like, that's 20% off for a game that's fairly new. So I guess a heads up there.
Yeah. I'm kind of in the same boat. I've been wanting to pick this up, and I think in my brain, I think sometimes we have these different tiers of games and we decide, oh, that to me, that is this price of a game. And for me, I looked at Olli World. It looks fantastic, but in my estimation, I'm like, I'd pay about $15 for that game. Mm-hmm. And so with the 20% discount, I'm kind of looking at it. I'm like, I think it's like 24, right? $24.
I think it's 22 or 23 with the discount, because it's normally 30.
Okay. So I'm like, we're getting close, but just so you know, it is also the same price on PlayStation Network. They're doing a sale. So you can grab it there as well. I don't know if Xbox has any sales going on. I haven't looked that up. Another quick shout out, since I was looking at the PlayStation Store on their sales, Control Ultimate Edition is $12. Go grab that if you have not played the Control Ultimate Edition. It comes with all the DLCs. You can get it on PS5. It has a performance mode at 60 frames. And $12 is, man, what a value for that game. And here's the funny part. So go grab that if you haven't. Control is a fantastic game.
+1. That's
I was looking
incredible
through-
value for what that is.
Yeah. So every once in a while you see these games, you're like, oh, that's an amazing value if someone hasn't played that yet. I was like, oh, here's Skyrim, PS5 edition. Surely I can get that for $5 on sale, right? $20 still on sale on the PlayStation. So for $8 more, I can buy Skyrim. The PlayStation Store, man, it's a jungle out there.
It's a funny place.
It's a silly place.
It is a silly place. It's insane to me how Skyrim is still selling who knows how many copies. Like, I feel like the UK needs to look into regulatory issues for selling Skyrim. Like, that seems like it's just,
they need to focus on Skyrim right now.
They need to stop auto buying a Skyrim on every platform for you. Like, you sign up for a new system and it just auto buys Skyrim.
Yeah.
Or I black out and buy it again.
Skyrim.
Yeah. Well, that's it. That's it for the news. Thanks for tuning in. Anything else from you?
No, I'm sorry, everyone out there. There were only 15 stories this week. We will dig deeper next week.
Yeah, we kept it to a breezy hour and a half.
Yeah, no, that's it. That's it for this week in gaming. Thanks for sticking with us. And remember, you can find us over on Patreon at patreon.com/Neverlag. And we will catch you next time on Neverlag.